Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
And welcome, everybody, to the glorious episode of the Put On Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Ryan Holmes, whose podcast on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. I'm somewhere in the Caribbean Sea out here in Puerto Rico on vacation, just chilling. I would say this is like one of the top 10 places I've ever been on vacation. It's been a good time out here. Definitely got some drinks in, got some chilling out, seeing some sights and scenes, and did some stuff I haven't normally done in my lifetime. So that's what vacation's all about. Our TPOW podcast is my Twitter handle, and Ryan's is RHOLM22. So just with news today, right now, we just heard about Fackrell, who is not going to be with the Raiders this year because he's going to be hurt because of what any specifics on the injury, why he's out for the year?
No, it says they just placed him on injured reserve, so it didn't have a specific injury listed. But I haven't heard that he's been hurt, so I don't know what happened.
Okay. Well, before we get to definitely subscribe, rate, and review to the podcast. I do want to go around the league real quick before we hit the Raiders. And if you see the camera going a little wobbly, I gotta hold it because there's nothing here for me. My tripod's back in California, so forgive me. But Ryan Jensen, the center for the Bucks. The Bucks will be looking for a center because their center is going to be out for some significant period of time. We don't know exactly how much, but the fear is that the Bucks have lost him for a long period of time here.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a significant injury. He's going to be out for most of, if not all of the season. Early reports today that they're going to give, they took a rookie tackle last year. They converted in the third round to center, that he's going to get an opportunity. Wouldn't be surprised if they went out and hit the free agent market after a couple of weeks just to get some veteran leadership in there for Tom Brady, because you don't want to put a guy out there who's not going to hold up in the middle, because Tom Brady doesn't want pressure over the middle.
Yeah. I mean, if Dylan Parham does his thing, maybe if you want to get a little Andre James action over there, you can. Just call Dave Ziegler. Kyler Murray, and this is an interesting situation because everybody knows back and forth with Kyler Murray, and I would say sometimes we just bag on athletes sometimes to a certain level, and I think he was trying to put people in their place a little bit, like talking about his accomplishments in high school, accomplishments in college, and then what he's done as a pro so far. It's never gonna the media is always gonna kind of have the last word on it, so it's not gonna play well in the room. But I mean, to a certain extent, I mean the guy. I mean, if you're going to go all in on the guy, it's gonna be. I'm not sure how that whole thing came out about the 4 hours of required tape work, but what are your thoughts about it being in the initial contract, then having it exposed, and then his response, and then now it's out of the contract?
To be clear, the team leaked this because there's no way it came from Murray's camp. They're not the one that leaked this. It came from the team. At some point, they put it in the contract for a reason. They had to believe that he wasn't putting in the time away from the facility. But ultimately, I think this is the fault of the agent. The agent has to read through the contract, find that clause in there and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Explain it to Kyler. Like, if you sign this contract, this question is going to immediately come up if this gets out. And I don't think the agent did his job here, in my opinion. I could be wrong. But it seems like Kyler was kind of blindsided by this from the media. And then clearly the Cardinals felt the heat too and took it out of the contract. So I think all parties look bad here. The Cardinals look bad. Kyler looks bad. The agent looks bad. And thank God we're not talking about this kind of stuff with the Raiders at this point, with some of the organizational stuff going on behind the scenes. But it's not good for the Cardinals in any aspect here. No,
I mean, I don't think for Kingsbury or that owner, it looks good at all in any way whatsoever. So we'll have to see if that is somehow they've seemed to be kind of been getting better every year. It looks like as far as wins go, we'll see if that continues. They got off the fast starts and then start losing games later in the season. That's kind of been a Kingsbury thing all the way back to Texas Tech. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, this guy is not. I mean, what are you going to do with him? I mean, he is who he is. I think you can be he's a quality NFL. He can be a quality NFL starter at times, but you have to I mean, you have to watch the injury part of it. You have to watch a lot of things with him. You got to make sure you have that running game. Certain things have to take place for him to be successful, right? In the league, right? A little bit more so than some of the other quarterbacks in the National Football League, right?
Yeah, and the other question I'd have is there was no pressure to give him this contract right now. Like he still could have played out this year. They could still franchise him. So if the Cardinals had that many questions to where they felt it was necessary to put that in the contract, why did they sign him right now? I don't know. I just have a ton of questions from everything that rose from it. But yeah, he's going to have to go out there and win games this year. He's in a division now where he's fighting with the Rams, the Super Bowl champions. And then, the 49ers are going to be there if Trey Lance plays well. They should beat up on the Seahawks, but they're going to be battling for a playoff spot. There's no way are the Cardinals a lock to be a playoff team this year.
And oddly enough, they've actually played well in that division. And for all the stuff circling around them, they beat the Niners. They beat the Seahawks. They beat some pretty good opponents. Beat some quality quarterbacks in the NFC West. Let's roll over to one of my favorite players in the league, Micah Hyde, is injured. So you gotta look at that injury for the Buffalo Bills. They're hoping that's not a significant injury. So he got injured in camp. So you have to look at that. This offseason will be remembered as the season where a lot of wide receivers got their extensions. It looks like DK Metcalf got his for 3 years. Talked about DK Metcalf getting his deal done. Some folks said he would try to demand a trade, but the guy came out there and Seattle is ponying up for the money, and it makes sense to sign him for a long-term deal.
Yeah, I think the key number here is $30 million signing bonus, which is the highest ever to a wide receiver. They know he's catching passes from Drew Lock this year and Geno Smith, so they went ahead and gave him $30 million this year to appease him. He got $58 million total guaranteed over that 3-year deal. It's a good deal for Metcalf. He gets paid right now, and he gets to be a free agent again in 3 years when he's 28 years old. I believe he'll be when he comes up again. So good for him for getting the money. The pressure is clearly on the 49ers now to figure out something with Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, no question about it. And you mentioned Deebo Samuel, Derwin James, and Deebo Samuel are looking for deals right now. So keep an eye on both of those guys. See what happens there. And then Jimmy G is still a Niner, so they put him in the closet. They won't keep him. They won't let him leave the closet and go get to take the field. But we know that as well. So let's head on to the Raiders here now. And I know you had a tweet the other day, and I'm gonna quote you one of your tweets if I can find it here. But the sun is blaring on my head. So it's early in camp, but if Alex Leatherwood can't beat out Lester Cotton or Brandon Parker, and it has the thinking man emoji. So thoughts behind that tweet and thought behind, I mean, like, I know for me, I kind of thinking the same thing. What's the coach talked about playing the best 11 on each play regardless. So, and they don't owe anybody anything on this roster. Your thoughts about what's going on with the offensive line so far?
Yeah, kind of the tweet originally, the thought process behind it was, here we go with another first-round pick that's not going to pan out. And then it kind of took a life of its own where everyone started questioning, saying Brandon Parker's, dramatically improved and Lester Cotton's been there and Leatherwood's in his second year, give him time. The point was they wasted a mid-first-round pick, a 17th pick in the draft on a guy. Yeah. We're having questions whether he can beat out a guy who can't stay on a roster in Lester Cotton, who's been there for 3 or 4 years, and Brandon Parker, who we've all seen plenty of to know that he's a serviceable tackle at best. So the tweet was more along the lines of the Raiders may have burned another first-round pick here, more so than saying that those other 2 guys are playing extremely well, because you don't want to do that, especially with what happened with the 5 draft picks that Gruden and Mayock had that probably aren't going to be on this roster in the next year or two when you talk about Farrell and Abram and Jacobs and Ruggs and Arnett. And then now it looks like we might be able to add Leatherwood. I'm still of the belief Leatherwood will start. I think he's going to start either right tackle or right guard. But the other point is a lot of people came to the defense of Lester Cotton and Brandon Parker. These guys haven't put pads on. So to say there's a distinct favorite here, I was thinking if 5 weeks from now he's not clearly better than those 2, then the Raiders made a huge mistake in the draft, which we've already kind of thought. But we thought there was a chance based on how we finished last year, this guy might be an average, maybe slightly better than average guard. But clearly the new regime isn't just going to hand him that job. But it was just interesting reading all the responses I got to that. It was just a thought I had in my head yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this. I'm hearing a lot of media love. I'm hearing a lot of "I told you so" about Lester Cotton already, and it's like it's really early. And I think I would definitely caution, and we on this podcast, we caution the fact that, hey, listen, just because the guy plays a lot or does this and that, or you hear about him a lot, don't necessarily jump into that and say that's the guy who's going to be the starter. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the starting person at that guard position, wide receiver position, or whatever position on the football field, right?
Yeah, if Lester Cotton beats him out and he plays, I'm fine with that. But it says more about Alex Leatherwood potential in the NFL if he can't beat him out. And now let's look at Alex Leatherwood came as like a 3-time All-American left tackle, this athletic measurables through the roof, good run blocking game film. Lester Cotton was an undrafted free agent that the Raiders have cut multiple times, and he hasn't been able to stay on the roster for more than a week or two at a time. It's not like this guy was a 3rd or 4th round pick sitting behind an all-pro and now he's getting his chance. And not to take anything away from Lester Cotton, I hope he does make the team and has a productive NFL career, but there's no way he should just be handed the job over a 1st-round pick from last year who played in every game.
He better, for me, and I think you say the same thing, like experience is a big part of this league, right? You can't sit here and mistake that. So if his experience, even though he didn't play great, is not as good as Lester Cotton. Lester Cotton not playing in these preseason games is really not. I see Lester Cotton is probably a backup. So let's just see if he can actually do something special here and unseat a 1st-round pick who has. He has ability. So let's see that first. I think it's a little. I think we like that underdog story a little bit too much in camp. We get caught up in it a little bit, right?
Yeah, and the pads haven't come on. So what if those guys shown to where that they're heads and shoulders above Alex Leatherwood? And I like Leatherwood. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowl or anything, but I think he has a chance to be a solid pro here, especially at guard. But let's hold back until the pads go on. They play a couple of games. We get some film on these guys before we just start anointing Lester Cotton as the next Pro Bowl interior player for the Raiders. Let's just see if he can make the team first.
And before we get the comment and the YouTube comment saying that, but the pads went on 2 days ago. We're talking about in games, talking about against competition. That's what we're kind of hitting towards. Guys who got other guys who are getting paid, right? Guys who are getting paid to make teams as well. Those guys are fighting for spots too, as well as with Cotton fighting for his spot, and they're fighting. Jaguars are going to be fighting for their own spot as well too. So we'll see what happens there. But let's see here. So some standouts from this defense. Sounds like Darren Butler has made some inroads here with the Raiders here. Duron Harmon, and then maybe Mac Hollins, who was like a fan favorite for these teammates here, could be play that Andre James or that Seth Roberts role. Special teams, also be a guy who could catch some passes here when time allows, when we're not looking for Waller, Renfro, or Adams here.
Yeah, clearly you've heard a lot about Harmon and his leadership ability, and he's probably going to slide in as that 3rd safety when they go to dime. Hollins has a chance. We keep hearing a little bit about a different wide receiver every day. One day it's Keenan Cole, one day it's Hollins, another day it's Robinson. So I think the Raiders like what they have in those 3 guys and just try to piece together enough snaps for them. I don't think any of them are going to be super productive fantasy football-wise, but they can be productive NFL players in a rotation over there. Today, Obi, who's pretty in on it on Twitter, tweeted out that he's hearing really good things about Merrick and Hobbs and Josh Jacobs. Those are the 3 names he put out there. He said numbers, but those are the 3 players. So it's good to hear Jacobs is having a good camp, and then it's really good to hear that Merrick might be stepping up here as well as Hobbs. They need a big season out of Hobbs.
So, and then to the point, I had Merrick on my list, and Merrick, I guess they had a great back and forth with Darren Waller this week. They kind of went at it in practice, and where he was covering Darren Waller, and they went back and forth where Waller got him sometimes, and Merrick, who has great coverage skills, we saw that at TCU. I think we're going to see a little bit more coverage stuff, or more creative stuff from him and Patrick Graham. He's been able to show his skills here as well, and I think we're both fans of what Trayvon Merrick can do in year 2 here.
Yeah, he has exceptional man skills, but they have to have confidence in the other safety to play the single high if they want to go to man and drop the safety down. the free safety in the box. So it's going to be upon Abram and Harmon, one of those two guys, to be reliable in the deep middle of the field for them to use Merrick as much as they want to. I think they're going to experiment a lot with it here in practice, and maybe even in some snaps in the preseason. We'll see when the bullets are real, when they start flying in the regular season, when you have Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert on the other side of the line of scrimmage, how much they're willing to do that. But hopefully, those other safeties can step up and know the scheme and can be reliable, and then the Raiders can use Merrick how they need to use it.
Dylan Parham, he almost sounds like a guy who you want to date your daughter when you hear him talk about when you hear him in the press conference, like just so grateful and so kind of a gentle giant, if you will. But it sounds like he's taking a lot of. We talked about him possibly being a center in the future, and it sounds like he's taking a lot of stuff in camp as far as being that guy, who's going to be giving snaps to Derek Carr possibly, and his physical build, we talked about it before, sounds like a guy who can definitely kind of fit the bill here and be a future center in the National Football League.
Yeah, and I think by the end of camp, he might be pushing under against that starting job if he comes along. Realistically, there's a chance you could be looking at, early in the season having Parham at center, maybe Cotton at guard, and Parker at right tackle. Who would have had that on their bingo card? I don't think anyone would have picked that. But I think the Denzel Good injury here, retirement, paves a way for Cotton to make this roster. I don't necessarily believe it's going to be in a starting role, but also it opens up a spot for Parham basically to move around. But if there's enough confidence in Cotton to where you have a useful interior backup along with Alex Bars, then maybe you do give Parham some snaps at center. And see how he goes in the preseason. I'm sure he will in the preseason, but then figure out if that's what you want to do going into the regular season. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts. I know that, that the beat writers are tweeting out the different O-line lineups, first, second, third team so far, but I think a lot's going to change between now and when they kick off on September 11th, I believe is the first game.
John and Micah, the super dad and super son, Dag, y'all dropped this, and then Good retires. So I think last week we talked about Denzel Good a little bit last week, and now he retires. So listen, go out there and get as much money as you can, NFL player, because he's had the average career is 3 years, but he lasts a little bit longer than that, and he had a good run. He had a good run, but he was going to clearly, even if he was 100% healthy, he would have had a hard time making this team. They're looking for some just some guys here. Whether you look at Aluminor, all the other pieces that they have, it's gonna be difficult for him to make this roster. Before I go on the couple other tidbits I had about training camp, what have you noticed so far, or as far as what you've heard?
I think some of the bright spots are the coverage of the linebackers that we've heard about. And we've talked a little bit about that, but if Denzel Perryman can be a reliable coverage linebacker in addition to what he brings to the run game, I think it'll really help them here, because then they're going to have a lot of depth if they can keep him on the field in nickel. That's yet to be seen. I think against some of these super high-powered teams that have movable tight ends, the Travis Kelce's of the world, that you're probably going to see a lot more of Brown and Diablo. But it's good to hear that the linebackers are holding up well. It still concerns me that there seems to be a lot of questions about the interior defensive line. Now, having said that, we know Hankins and Nichols haven't been practicing, so that's probably a big reason. But the Raiders can't afford to go another couple of weeks and not have those guys on the field. So if those guys aren't going to be healthy and ready to go, they need to bring in some other bodies that will be. So this roster is nowhere near done. I think the Raiders are going to hit the waiver wire. There are going to be guys are looking forward to fill in positions. There's still some free agents out there that may want to go after. Dante Hightower's still out there. If they're looking for a linebacker now, with Fackrell leaving, I think they need another edge. I don't think you can go into the season with just Jones, Crosby, and Kuntz and think you're fine there. I think you need another guy that can be a reliable edge rusher to give those guys a break, whether that's Farrell or not. It sounds like Farrell's getting some snaps inside as well. So the Raiders have another pass rushing outside linebacker for this 3-4 defense. Wouldn't be surprised to see them add a player there.
Yeah, I believe one of the tackles became available today. Who was on the injured list. I think it was. I don't know if it was Butler. I think it was Billing. I think it was Vernon Butler. Vernon Butler, yeah. Vernon Butler was available now. So So we'll see there. We did have some other YouTube comments from Jim Vivian. Finally, someone who realizes the roster is far from set. All the media acts like there are 52 roster locks, despite new coaching staff and substantial personnel turnover at some positions. So, and then he later just said the thing with tight end Bowers is he usually gets hurt, wide body, and a preseason performer as a blocker last year and pass pro, but injured most of the college years as well too. So just some kind of things from the fans watching the show, commenting on the show, commenting on that. Please keep those comments coming on the Put On Raiders podcast as well. So let's see here. So I did have there's always a couple guys that you kind of like. I like Tyron Johnson. I love that speed. I like him a lot. So I'm kind of hoping he makes the squad as that speed receiver. That'd be nice. That'd be nice for the Raiders to have. I do like. I mean, obviously Waller. You have Renfro, and then you have Adams. But I mean, you just got to go flat out run. Who you have to kind of, he has that kind of blazing speed. He has that ability. So he's having a pretty good camp as well too. And then Rock Ya-Sin, who we talked about, who the Raiders. I mean, let's be honest. Like with Trayvon being, on the mend, I mean, it would be a hard defense for them not to have Rock Ya-Sin. So what's about Rock Ya-Sin here? And I a quick question for you about I get a lot of questions about Nate Hobbs. Can Nate Hobbs, if they needed to have him play outside in this defense, which I mean, we haven't kind of dove in that defense just yet, but could he play outside in the National Football League? I know he's been primarily just a slot corner right now.
So on the Hobbs question, my immediate response would be, well, then who plays the nickel? Because they're going to be a nickel 70% of the time. Exactly. I don't think they have another guy on the roster that can do what he can do inside. Could he do it when you go, to a base defense and have two guys on the field? Yeah, he probably could do it. There might be some ups and downs. He would have to get used to playing on the outside, which he did in college. But he wasn't a productive player on the outside in college. He was more of a surefire tackler. It was an attitude. It was a presence. There's a reason he was there in the 5th round, which fits more to the style of play he needs on the interior. Rock Ya-Sin is going to be the number one corner. Like, he's the best corner on the roster, the healthiest corner on the roster right now with Trayvon Mullen hurt. He's going to be matched up with the number one receivers on every team. I don't know if Patrick Graham corners travel or not. I haven't done a ton of film study on his defenses yet. We'll see if they do. If he does, he's going to be traveling with the number one receiver, no matter who the Raiders line up with. And week 1, I would think that he's going to get a lot of Mike Williams, the bigger physical guy. And then Nate Hobbs is going to get Keenan Allen in the slot. On the Johnson thing, I had to do a double take. I saw jersey number 1. I'm like, Deshaun Jackson's back. Who is that guy? And then it was Johnson, or T-Billy, as they call it. T-Billy.
He's
going to have an opportunity to win that kick return job. That speed. If he can be a reliable kick returner, that's going to give him a chance to make this roster as a 5th or 6th wide receiver. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be really interesting when the Raiders start making some cuts, because there's going to be some guys get let go, where a lot of fans are going to be like, what happened here? And a lot of it's going to be scheme dependent and what these new coordinators want to do and the specific roles, because that Josh McDaniel's system is very role dependent. Like, he's looking for guys to do certain things. And maybe he'll let a better player go because he doesn't do the one thing that role or that what he envisions that player to do to be.
And still go silence on Gillespie, right? I haven't heard a single person say anything. That'd be the greatest secret ever if, like, week 1 he's starting, because I haven't heard anything about Gillespie at all. And I know a lot of Raider fans will on the text line are wondering about him, but it just sounds like he's just not he's not really a factor right now for the Raiders. But I do with the Fackrell injury, I think we focus a lot on what if something goes wrong. And I think that I am a little worried about the fact that Kuntz is the only guy. I think Carlos Dunlap just signed a deal with the Chiefs. Do you think that it would behoove them to maybe try to grab somebody else to kind of fill that role? Because it's important to have, even if not for injury, just to spell a Max Crosby, just to spell a series for Chandler Jones here.
Yeah, right now that's probably going to fall into Cleveland Farrell's laps, and we'll see if teams see him on the field in an outside alignment in the 3-4, if they attack that in the passing game. I'm going to look at some free agents here, but yeah, clearly they need another guy that can be that 3-4 presence on the outside. They can set the line of scrimmage, can play a little bit in coverage, but also can get after the quarterback. It is concerning because I don't think Jerry Green's that guy. He's on the roster. I just don't see that guy. And looking around, it looks like a Koronquo from the Rams as a free agent. He was out of Oklahoma. He kind of fits that defense. It is that kind of position, but there's not going to be a ton of guys out there. Actually, no, I'm sorry. He's on Houston, so he's not even a free agent. But yeah, they definitely are going to hit the waiver wires, and maybe they bring someone in to be an outside rusher.
Yeah, to see what happens there. Holy moly says Denzel Perryman is already set to make $3 million this year. Terrible take, saying he'll take a 3-year extension for $12 million total, a $1 million increase per year. Well, I mean,
I saw that. I'd like to address that because he was a free agent and he got a 2-year, $6 million deal from Carolina. Didn't even make it out of camp. I know that he was a Pro Bowler last year for the Raiders, but if you look at it, he's going to be 30 years old. He's a rundown player. He hasn't been good in pass coverage. And if the Raiders are going to play a ton of nickel, and if he doesn't get a lot of snaps in the nickel, how much is that player worth to you?
Yes.
In a roster building, because in a 3-4, the inside linebacker has to be able to cover because the outside guys are pass rushers. So now I'm not saying Denzel Perry's not a good player. I gave him a raise, but I tried to keep it, realistic, where I'm not going to overpay for that guy, especially considering he does have some injury history and he's going to be 30 years old next year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, hey, it's all good. Like I said, we take all comments. So I want to make sure that I don't want people to say that, there's negative comment and you guys didn't say anything about it. So so we'll see what happens there with Denzel Perryman. I think for leadership and for everything he kind of brings to the team, I do think it's tough though. Once you get into that situation where people want to spread you out, like you said, I mean, can he stay on the field? And I think that's a huge thing. And if he can stay on the field, then great. If he can't, then that's gonna be an issue. Vic Tafer also wrote in this week where he said something about, what did he say? About the this Stidham has the inside track because these backup quarterbacks are terrible. So I mean, I listen. If Carr goes down for any significant amount of time, then the season's done anyway. So nobody has that situation. Maybe the 99ers if they keep Jimmy Garoppolo, but sounds like they want to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. But I mean, you got to sit there and like people who are really good backup quarterbacks. They're not. I mean, that was a unique situation last year last couple of years when they had Mariota. But for the most part, they just want to. I mean, they want to play and. You're gonna see it. You see, I saw it in Cleveland. There's a reason why he went to Cleveland and then didn't go to a team like the Raiders. He wants to go play. And right now, these guys are not the best options. But for a fact that if they actually had to come in the game, you're in trouble anyway.
No, definitely. And like I said, I think one of those two will make the roster. One will end up on the practice, but they might keep all three because I think Stidham isn't going to be around for 17 weeks on the practice squad. At some point, there's going to be injuries. Someone's going to claim him. He knows the offense. He probably has a leg up. Nick Mullins is probably more of a game player than he is in practice because we've seen him perform when the lights come on. Mm-hmm. But he has an uphill battle now, in my opinion, to beat out Stidham. A quick note, I looked at the free agent pass rushers. So these are the guys the Raiders would have to be looking at. D Ford, if he's healthy. Will he come in a sub-package guy? Does Anthony Barr want to be just an edge rusher? Jason Pierre-Paul probably wants more snaps than the Raiders are willing to give him. And then you're looking at the likes of Jeremy Atacho, ex-Charger, went to Chicago, so Champ Kelly knows him. He would fit as a backup 3-4 outside linebacker, but it gets thin pretty quick. Pernell McPhee wouldn't be too bad. Again, played in Chicago under Champ Kelly, ex-Raven. But those are the kind of guys you're looking at. There's not going to be any slam dunk fixes here unless there's a young guy the Raiders have interest in that gets waived. But a lot of good pass rushers don't get waived. But we'll see. I can't wait for the game to kick off next week and actually see some of these lower roster guys put pads on and see what it looks like. I don't think we're going to see a ton of the starters, and we might not see any of the starters. But I would assume that the Brandon Parkers, Lester Cottons, those guys are going to get some run. Parham's going to get some run. We'll see what Illuminor looks like as a tackle. Yes. We'll get to see it. Some of those young guys, the Butlers that we're talking about. I would assume the defensive players are probably going to play a little bit. I don't think Jones or Crosby will, but the rest of those guys might. Yeah. Just to see what they look like in the scheme. But it's going to be interesting to see. And you'll probably get bored by the second quarter because that's usually what happens in that first preseason game. But yeah, it'll be fun to turn the TV on and see the Raiders running out of the tunnel.
Yeah, after that first tunnel run, you're like, okay. But I wonder if Doug Peterson, and I hope, I don't wish injury on anybody. So I hope, but I hope Trevor Lawrence actually plays. I think it'd be a good test for that Raider defense, that young defense. Cause I know he's trying to learn a new offense. He's trying to get the stench off from the previous coach out there in Jacksonville, and now that he's with a real head coach, we'll see what happens in Jacksonville with him. So we'll see what goes on there. Trying to see if any other questions here as far as that goes. People made a big deal about T. Billy beating Jonathan Abram in coverage. I mean, that happened. I mean, we're talking about Jonathan Abram, so like that happens a lot as far as beating him deep down the field. Let me see here. Yeah, that's pretty much as far as it goes right now. For me, I'm pretty good with everything. You have any thoughts about anything before we head out?
No, just while you're on vacation in Puerto Rico, I'm headed to Vegas later this evening. So I'll be in the stadium tomorrow doing the full tour. I'll be in the locker room. I'll be down on the field. So excited to look forward to spend a weekend in Vegas. And then I'll probably be back for one of the preseason games and then kick it off for that Cardinals home opener.
Did you see the rain? It rained so much. It rained inside the casinos. The rain was coming through the ceilings of the casinos.
I saw that.
That looked pretty crazy out there. So hopefully they get caught in that rain. But yeah, I mean, listen. The stadium is magnificent. Saw it last year. Can't wait to go back again this year. And then I gotta do a stadium tour. I gotta just say I see all these pictures. Everybody's posting their pictures of with in front of Max Crosby's jersey. He seems to be the locker everybody wants to take a picture in front of. It's Max Crosby. So we'll to see what happens there. So it'd be kind of cool to check that out. Is the field? Have you been to the field before? Have you been on the field before, or no? It's first time.
I haven't been down on the field. I've been to the stadium several times, but not on the field.
All right. So you have so Ryan, you haven't been on the field, but you've been in the stadium a bunch of different times. I can tell you, like, you remember the old Texas Stadium where they talked about the crown on the field, where you couldn't see, dude. When I tell you, I could not believe it was almost like the middle of the field is on a hill, and then if you ran an out, like when Troy Aikman threw those outs to Michael Irvin, I have more respect for it now because you can't see. I can't see the person who's standing on the 50-yard line. Like it's just like you're just like, I don't know how that stadium was built, but like it was just built that way, I guess. But like it was talking about like I think it was like Montana and Rice just talk about how they could run those routes in the dark, at nighttime. Like it's like that. So I'm sure the stadium is a little bit more evenly killed than that is, but it should be cool. I've been to that stadium I've been to that stadium, and I've been to the Ravens Stadium on the field as well too, which is kind of cool. Always cool to be on the field as well too. So that should be a cool trip out there in Vegas. Any over unders, John? You're gonna be looking at?
There will be some bets made. Yes.
here's one thing I'm looking at is we went from laughing our behinds off at Dan Campbell to him being everybody's favorite coach in year 2. Have you noticed that?
Not mine, but yeah, everyone else.
Yeah, everybody else has the over. Love the Lions this year. So, that's crazy.
Jared Goff still their quarterback?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Exactly. And then like we have to get off of Raider Nation when a Raider leaves and gets cut from another team, and then as soon as they get cut, we go at Raiders. Like, I mean, like, I think it was what Javin White just got cut from the Jets. Like,
Saw that.
like, yeah, guys, relax, calm down. Like, it's okay. We don't need every old Raider to come back. Like, it's all right. It's okay. He's not. I mean, hopefully he catches on somewhere, but I mean, we can't keep trying to come back and reinvent the wheel here with every single player. All right, Raider Nation, we're out. I got some drinks waiting for me. Out here. I hope you have a good time. Stay out of that rain out there in Vegas. I hope we get some nice weather out there. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care.
Yep.